Welcome to Pep Talk with Bridget Kay.
This hour is presented by Mainstay Financial and Annalee Leonard, who is responsible for the information and opinions expressed during the show.
Hi, this is Financial Advisor of the Year, Jim Brogan of Knoxville, Tennessee. You're listening to Winning with my good friend and colleague, Annalee Leonard.
You're listening to Winning with Annalee. Annalee is a retirement and estate planner, a member of the Ed Slott Master Elite IRA Advisor Group, as well as a sought-after speaker on such topics as income planning, 401k rollovers, and advanced IRA reduction strategies. When not working in her private practice, Annalee joins with other certified senior advisors to promote top-quality services to mature adults in the Pensacola area. Her goal is to help you prepare for and live comfortably in retirement. You can reach her office at 437-3127 or online at mainstaypensacola.com. Or call her now at 437-1620 on Winning with Annalee.
You can call us right now if you have a question or you want to make a comment at 437-1620. We'd be more than happy to hear from you. Welcome. I'm your host, Annalee Leonard, president and founder of Mainstay Financial Group, right on the corners of Antes and Perry. And I don't know about you, but I am enjoying the spring. But, oh, my goodness, I'm hating the allergies that it brings out. I know you remember I wasn't here last week, and it was for a very minor reason. I just couldn't even talk. It's kind of hard to be on the radio.
Yeah, I guess you can't do the talk show.
Just a little
difficult.
difficult.
Rule that out.
So I quickly decided I better get Joan to come in and talk to you. And Bridget and I were just talking. Joan did a wonderful show last week.
Love her.
Thank you to Joan, and I'm glad to be back with you today. I've got a guest that's coming in with us today that I think you're going to really enjoy. I love to do things in a very holistic fashion, and I love to bring you all kind of opinions and thoughts that are going on. And Casey does a tremendous job looking for people that I can bring on the show. And she found for me Dr. Mark Thornton. Now, Dr. Thornton is a very accomplished gentleman. He's senior fellow at the Ludwig von Mises Institute, and he's the former assistant superintendent of banking and economic advisor to Governor Bob James of Alabama. I don't know about you, but I find that very impressive. Mm-hmm. This is a gentleman who knows what he's talking about. And Dr. Thornton and I had a talk about some of his theories, and I said, why don't you come on? Let's talk about him, and let's let our listeners hear about this and see what they think, because I think the more educated we are, the more good conclusions we can reach in our life. So I invited Dr. Thornton to come on today. He successfully has used what he terms the skyscraper index. And with that, he explains how the Austrian economists have always been able to predict economic crisis.
Wow.
Now, Bridget, you're young, but I would bet you have never heard of the skyscraper index.
That is correct.
And I never did either. Till I talked to Dr.
Imagine
Thornton.
if I was like, yes, I know all about it.
Oh, I know. If you had said yes, I would have really been thrown. So Dr. Thornton and I had a talk, and I requested that he come in and talk to us about this. And, I mean, he has been published in all types of unbelievable publications that we've heard of: the American Spectator, Barron's, Bloomberg, Christian Science Monitor, The Economist, Forbes, Investors Business Daily, the New York Times, USA Today, Wall Street Journal, Economic Times, Financial Times. I mean, I think this man has had his thoughts out there. Yes. So, Dr. Thornton, welcome to Winning with Annalee and Mainstay.
Annalee, thank you very much for the opportunity to be on your show today and to talk to your audience.
Well, you and I had a conversation, and I found what you had to say very intriguing, and I wanted to share some of your ideas with our listeners. And you term this the skyscraper theory, and that's a very unusual terminology, the skyscraper index. So tell us a little bit about what you think that this correlation between skyscraper records and recessions. I just find this so interesting.
Well, Annalee, I first came across the skyscraper indicator in 1999. A financial analyst published a report, and it was an indicator. That just means that there's some kind of correlation between the building of a world record-setting skyscraper and an impending economic crisis. And I immediately saw in that the Austrian approach to understanding business cycles. In other words, there's a theory that connects the building of a skyscraper with an economic crisis. Obviously, the actual building of a record-setting skyscraper isn't going to cause a world economic crisis. But when we understand what causes the building of a world record-setting skyscrapers, in this case, ultra-low interest rates that encourage speculation and encourage innovative building plans of the nature that would create a world record-setting building, then we know that, for example, in this case, the Federal Reserve, with its ultra-low interest rates, is doing something more generally throughout the economy. And it's just the skyscraper that we actually notice, but the actual trends that we don't necessarily understand are occurring throughout the economy, and that's what makes it lead up to an impending economic crisis.
So let's take just a minute and kind of go back. So what the index and the theory are indicating that when interest rates are very low, which of course they are now and have been for a tremendous amount of time, that people will, I believe you said, get into more speculative type of investments?
That's correct. They're going to do things that have generally never been done before. They're going to use advanced technology, and they're going to build bigger investments, bigger projects throughout the economy, and ultimately that takes the form of a world record-setting skyscraper. So I think the way you put it is actually perfect in the sense that there's an indicator, but there's also a theory that connects those two things.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And you know, it's now we've seen a couple of times where the Fed has tried to come in and start raising the interest rates, and of course what we have seen is a knee-jerk reaction from the market every time even a whisper occurs that, oh, we're going to raise the interest rates. And you and I both know that eventually this has got to start going back up. I mean, you know, it's great right now if you're buying something, but it's terrible if you're trying to save money. So as these are creeping back up, so you're saying that normally this aspect of building these extreme buildings, these skyscrapers, it happens prior to that because people can borrow money at a lower rate, and the investors looking, saying, whoa, I can make a lot of money by investing in this, and that's where people sometimes get caught.
That's right. The interest rate is something that fundamentally affects all investments. It fundamentally affects valuations of real estate, of stocks, of bonds, and when the interest rate is pushed down, bond prices go up, stock prices go up, real estate prices go up, and so it's the fundamental factor that the Fed is artificially managing. And as you said, once they started talking and raising the interest rates and normalizing their balance sheet, the stock market sold off. And that's not surprising at all because of the way the interest rate affects the evaluation of all of our assets, all of our portfolios, our real estate, and in particular land prices actually is heavily impacted by the interest rates. And that's one of the theories connecting skyscrapers to economic crises, as well as the boom part too. And that is that as interest rates go down, the price of land goes up. And I know your listeners who are in the real estate business, that higher land prices force entrepreneurs and investors to build taller buildings. That's just, 101 of real estate is lower interest rates, higher land prices. You have to build higher in order to make a project more profitable.
I see. That makes sense. Would you just repeat that, because I want to make sure everybody heard exactly what you said? That's a very sound theory.
Yes, it's like I said, it's real estate 101 in the sense that when interest rates decrease, land prices increase because you'd rather have your money in land than in the banking account. As you pointed out correctly earlier, these ultra-low interest rates by the Fed have been terrible for people trying to save for their retirement, trying to save for other reasons. And so lower interest rates, higher land prices. And so if you have to buy land at a higher price, then you have to create more square footage in order to make the investment profitable. And in order to create more square footage, you have to build higher. So that, for example, in Auburn, it used to be that the downtown area of Auburn there were 2-story buildings all across downtown Auburn. And then during the housing bubble of the 2000s, people started building 3-, 4-, and 5-story buildings. And in this latest bubble in Auburn, they're building, if you consider the parking space area, they're building 5-, 6-, 7-, and 8-story buildings.
Wow!
And so this is a whole new thing. It's really revolutionary in terms of changing the skyline. Unfortunately, I had to cancel my vacation plans to Pensacola, and I was hoping to get a look at Pensacola to see what was going on construction-wise in that city. But I've noticed it in the past that they tend to build taller hotels on the beach during these bubbles, and it really changes the whole landscape of cities, particularly larger cities that we've seen in terms of New York, for example, and Chicago, where during great bubbles of the past, there's been great skyscrapers built, so that in the days and years leading up to the Great Depression in New York City, they set a record for 40 Wall Street building, which is now a Trump building, and then the Chrysler building that was completed a year later, and then, of course, the Empire State Building, which set yet another record in 1930. And of course, the economic crisis that followed all that was one of the worst in history.
That's it. Yes, definitely. And what always amazes me, and I tell my clients this all the time, history consistently repeats itself, and it's like we read it, but we don't take it to heart. We have this thing of, it can't happen today, and then you look at it, and yep, the same exact pattern occurs. It's like we just don't learn from the past, which I think if we did, we could make the future so much better. And maybe we should pay attention to that and what's going on. And I had never made that correlation before, that right after all those buildings went up in New York, we had the Great Depression. And I was thinking when you were first saying about, when land is more in demand, you build higher because the land is more valuable. You build higher. But my first thought was New York because, gosh, how many people. We went on a tour there several years ago, and I want to say the tour guide, and please don't quote me on this number, but he said there's something like 70,000 people per square mile. And it's like, holy.
That's crazy. Yeah.
I mean, there's not that many people in Pensacola, for God's sake, the whole city, So you think about it, and New York as a landmass is really not that big. It's an island, just as Pensacola is actually, when you look at it. And yes, I have noticed, like out in Perdido Key, when I first started coming here, that was all just beautiful open land. And now it's just condo after condo after condo, and those things are huge. So it makes sense. It definitely makes sense. So in case you're just joining us, you're listening to Winning with Annalee and Mainstay. And I'm your host, Annalee Leonard, and I'm talking today to Dr. Mark Thornton, who is a very accomplished gentleman and has taught. And I believe right now are you now at Auburn University? I know you were teaching economics there. Are you still there?
Yes, I'm at Auburn University. I work full time for the Mises Institute in Auburn, and then right across the street from us is Auburn University.
Oh, okay.
And I've been teaching on and off there for many, many years, and it's been great. But to your point, if you tour the country and you look at the tallest building in a city, no matter what it is, if it's Atlanta or Asheville or Birmingham, what you'll find is if you spot those taller buildings and then you inquire about when they were built, they're almost always going to be built during a bubble or a boom in the economy, and then of course after they're completed, either the local economy or the national economy or even the global economy will go into a correction at least, but very often it's an economic crisis, and so that's one of the things I put my vacations to use for is looking at real estate and really confirming this skyscraper indicator that is, it's all about world economic crises and world record-setting skyscrapers, but it also works on the local level as well.
But I'm glad you brought in, and you've said it several times, the whole idea of a global economy, because I find people that still, and I don't know if I want to call them naive or just blissfully closing out the rest of the world, that think what goes on in the rest of the world doesn't really affect us. One of my people came in the other day and actually said to me, well, is this whole thing that's going on with Brexit going to affect us? Well, yeah. I mean, we're a world economy now. We're not just the United States or just Alabama or just Florida. There is this unbelievable chain effect that occurs. So saying that, it seems we have had some unbelievably massive, gorgeous buildings being built, not so much here in the United States, but around the world in other countries. Do you have a comment on that?
Oh, yes. I mean, you cannot ignore the global economy. It's an integrated whole to a large extent. And so when the European record was set, I think it was in 2012 in London, the Shard building in London, it set a record for the European continent. And then right as that record was being set, the European economy went into an economic crisis, so that in Portugal, Italy, Iceland, Ireland, Greece, and Spain, their economies all went down severely, and they had a government debt crisis in those economies, and they had to be bailed out. And so that was just a secondary reaction to what had been going on in the United States with the housing bubble and then the subsequent financial crisis of 2008 the European economies were doing the same thing. They were building housing like crazy. Particularly like in Spain, they were building way too much housing in places that normally no housing would be built. I visited Ireland in 2005 and found that people were building condominiums out in the countryside, far away from the center city business districts, and so that crisis, the European debt crisis, was just a secondary reaction to what had been going on in the United States. We just hit the crisis quicker than some of these other economies did, but inevitably, the monetary policy, particularly by the Federal Reserve, by the Fed, is infectious throughout the world economy. And what we've seen subsequently is that the Fed, the European Central Bank, the Bank of Japan, the Bank of Korea, the People's Bank of China, all have been engaged in more than a decade-long period of ultra-low interest rates that have never been experienced in the history of the world. We've never done that where, for example, in the U.S. we had the Federal Reserve holding the main interest rate down at 0.25 of 1% for years and years. And the Europeans are still doing it. And China has unleashed a massive borrowing and lending program. Of course, Japan and Germany have ultra-low interest rates to this day. And so, they're still at it. They're still trying to artificially create prosperity. And what they're really doing is creating the potential for an economic crisis.
And it's amazing you're saying that and thinking about it on a very small scale. I live in an area in Gulf Breeze that is not overly populated. It's a little subdivision that's kind of hidden, and most people don't even know it's back there. And yet, on this little bitty street, and I mean, this is how small our subdivision is, we don't even have sidewalks. I mean, and the streets are very narrow, and I'm redoing some stuff on my patio. 2 houses down, they're building a massive, huge house that used to be all woods. Across the street, a few houses down, they literally tore down a house that was there on the water, rebuilding this, what I call McMansion. Then you come back to the right side, another one is being totally redone. And it's like, my God, this little bitty street and all this construction going on, what's going on through the rest of the area?
Wow.
So do you think people are hurrying up and they're taking advantage of these lower interest rates while we've got them?
Yeah, they're definitely making a final push to get projects started and to get projects to marketplace, and they're all going to be bigger. And I pity you trying to make renovations in this stage of the business cycle is very difficult because all the contractors and subcontractors are really busy. And so it's not a good idea to try to update your house or renovate your house during these final stages where all of the contractors are really, really busy. But when you get into the economic crisis, then it becomes very easy to renovate your house. I've purchased a property in Florida in 2011, after the crisis had hit, and it was very easy to do the renovation. It was relatively inexpensive to do the renovation because all the contractors and subcontractors were eager for work. They needed
Doctor,
the work.
we're going to have to go find out what's going on in the world. I'd much rather continue talking to you, but they make me go to the news, and, I'm getting a dirty look from the newsman over there. I didn't mean to hurt your feelings, honey.
Now, back to the Pensacola Expert Panel with Bridget Kay on News Radio 92.3, AM 1620.
All I do is win, 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 no matter what. Got money on my Everybody hands go up. And they stay there. And they stay there. And they stay there. Cause all I do is win. And if you going in, put your hands in the air.
Put your hands in the air and let's win. And that's what we want you to do at Mainstay Financial Group. I want you to win with your money, win with your life. I want you to have a plan that will help you to accomplish what you want to accomplish. And our main goal always is to educate you, because if I can educate you, I can enlighten you. If I can enlighten you, I can empower you to make correct decisions. And that's why I love to have guests like our wonderful guest today, who's with us, Dr. Mark Thornton. And Dr. Thornton is a professor. He is an economist. He teaches, and I know we got a lot of Auburn people out there that are Auburn fans. Hopefully my neighbors across the street are listening today, because they're big Auburn fans. They give nice donations to them. And also at Trinity University in Texas, he served as assistant superintendent of banking, economic advisor to Governor Fob James of Alabama, has done a tremendous amount of research over the years, have written for some of the major outstanding business magazines that we have. And we're talking today about what is termed as the skyscraper index. And, just to kind of go back, Dr. Thornton, it sounds like to me you're saying, and maybe you're not, but the indexes seem to be saying that maybe we best be careful because maybe this is kind of getting ready to occur again.
Yes, I think caution is the word of the day. Psychologically, we've gone through 10 years of the stock market increasing, and we've seen that as the Federal Reserve tried to normalize interest rates and normalize their balance sheet, that the stock market reacted pretty negatively to that return to normalcy. And so I think that backs up what I'm saying about the skyscraper indicator. And I think it also, you're absolutely correct that your audience should realize the negative influence of psychology. And that negative influence of psychology encourage us to invest when stocks are high, and it discourages us when stocks are low. And it should be the exact opposite, that you should be ready and willing to enter investments when the prices are low, and you should be ready to exit investments when the prices have gone up tremendously. And of course, we've seen a tremendous increase in the U.S. stock market, and now when the historically low interest rates get reversed just a little bit, we get a negative reaction in stock markets, and it's even affecting the housing industry negatively as well. And so keep that psychological problem in mind for the rest of your life, and really and be ready to react against the trends that you would otherwise engage in.
That's one of the things I teach people in the classes that I conducted, is that, basically the market and money are very emotional. People don't want to think that, but it's very emotional. And it's run by two things, fear and greed. And it's just what you just said. When market's good, everybody's, oh, yeah, I want a piece of that. I want some of that. I want some of that. Well, that's not the time to be buying. And then that's the greed side. And then the fear comes in, just like you said, when it's down, everybody panics. I want to get out. Well, no, that's the worst time to move. And I've been telling all my people since January, we do risk assessments. They look at them and they say, oh, yeah, I don't care if I lose this much money. And then when it happens, they go into a panic. So, I've said again, in fact, in my January newsletter, one of the things I said was people might be a time to do a reassessment and think about how much truly you're willing to lose, because now we're going back up again. Perhaps this is the time to start calming down some of what you're doing. And I think what I'm hearing you saying is during this type of time, we need to look more at diversification, make sure we've got good diversification, have some safety in the portfolios that we're building for ourselves, and make sure we're adjusting to what our true risk tolerance is, for lack of a better word.
Yes, absolutely. At the very least, you should be rebalancing your portfolios along traditional lines, which says keep some cash so that if you get a stock market crash, you're not having to sell everything. So you want some cash, you want some gold. Those are traditional hedges against these kind of problems. I would go further than that, but I think that's the very least everybody should be doing. They should be talking to their investment advisors, telling them that they're concerned and how to best react to that. And in line with that, I've sent Casey a link where your audience can download a free PDF copy of my book, and it's also available in an audio file so you can just listen to it.
Great.
Wonderful.
And to start educating yourself on the history of the skyscraper index, and also in the second half of the book, it's a history of what Austrian school economists, such as myself, have said just prior to the major economic crises over the last 100 years, and what mainstream economists have been saying. And basically, the Austrians have got it right, have been very timely, and mainstream economists from Irving Fisher to Milton Friedman have got it absolutely wrong. They were cheerleading the stock market when it was really high, and then shortly thereafter there was severe corrections, whether it was the Great Depression or the financial crisis of 2008. And so it's a different look at the economy, it's a different look at the business cycle, and it's a different look in terms of monetary policy. Austrian economists such as myself, Austrian school economists such as myself, think that the central bank or the Federal Reserve managing interest rates is absolutely wrong for the economy, and that interest rates should be market determined. And when the interest rates are market determined, we don't get these big swings of booms and busts. We have a more stable economy. We have a stable investment environment, and that's good for the American people.
And that it all comes right back to the fact, I think, that sometimes too much regulation may not be a beneficial thing. And we've gotten to a point where we're very regulated in just about everything that we do. And I know that no one I have met out there really rejoices about the fact that, they get maybe 0.5% at the lending institutions when they're trying to save money. Come on, we're just all a little bit greedy, and 0.5% just doesn't hack it. But the only way we're going to get out of that is to allow the interest rates to go up, and yet every time they try to go back up, we have that panic situation. So I can very well see what you're saying there, maybe the Austrians do have it right. Maybe we ought to look at that a little bit more. So again, you said your book is, you've given it to KC. You'll be able to go to our website at Mainstay. We'll have it listed on the radio, right, Bridget?
Absolutely. We'll have it on our podcast page on the newsradio1620.com website. So I'll have KC send that to me, and that's what I'm working on now.
We can go on either of those sites and download and read Dr. Mark Thornton's book for free, and I think, and again, I have built my whole practice, Dr. Thornton, on educating people. And I was told when I first did this as a financial advisor by many other people out there, oh, no, don't educate them. You don't want them to know what you're doing. But I think that's such a ironic approach in my field, because I think the more educated your client is, the more they understand why you're doing what you're doing and appreciate what you're doing.
Yes, absolutely. There's no question about that. If people that are uneducated and then they face a stock market crash, they become emotionally depressed as a result. And it's when last time I checked, my savings account was earning 0.01 of 1%.
And you greedy
interest.
man, you want more.
Yes.
Oh my gosh.
And keeping interest rates that low has forced everybody to take money out of savings and out of checking and put it not in cash but in stocks, which are inherently unstable.
Right.
And so that's that hurts the American people when the next economic crisis comes along, when they should have an option of keeping a big portion of their portfolio in a bank account at a stable valuation. And when we were on the gold standard and you were earning a few percent on your money, and the money was actually going up in value.
Yes.
And so you were earning more than 2 or 3%. You were really earning, closer to 4 or 5%, and that can add up over time.
Yes.
Significantly. And the Fed has taken that away from us. They've taken the gold standard away from us, and so we're left with fiat paper money, which is of indeterminate value. Really, I mean, it could plunge in value just as easily on this system. But the Fed has really rigged the game against the average American trying to save for retirement, tried to save for projects, saving to build a house, all sorts of things. That's all been taken away from us, and we've been led down the life of borrowing lots of money, getting big mortgages for big houses, lots of student debt, lots of credit card debt. And so instead of the savers of the past, we become the spenders and the debt slaves.
The debt slaves, yes.
In the current situation. Now, I'd like to see that all changed, but I'm obviously not going to not be able to change it. And so we have to be concerned, as investors, where we're putting our money.
And do you think, Dr. Thornton, as you're saying this, and we're talking about our economy, our money, is this what has spurred the growth of all of these money factors that have no basis to them, something like Bitcoin and those places that just explode? And then I read something the other night, one of the founders of one of these, it wasn't Bitcoin, and I don't remember which one it was, he died very unexpectedly in his 30s. Well, guess what? Nobody can get into his computer to unlock all of this money that's in there. So there are millions and millions of dollars that are being just kind of held up in limbo land. I get nervous about those. I mean, do you think that's all a spurring on of what's occurring now?
Absolutely. There's no question about it. Bitcoin was established in 2009 in the wake of the financial crisis and in the wake of the bailout of the big banks.
Yes.
And so, and it's constructed to be a non-governmental money. And so I like the fact that it was a reaction to the crisis and the bailouts, and the fact that it tries to mimic the gold standard in that the amount of new Bitcoins gets less and less and less, and supposedly that will drive up the value in the future. But I'm not a big proponent of people using it. We just had a conference over the weekend here, and one of the leading authorities on Bitcoin, told the audience that Bitcoin is not going to be used for transactions the same way money is going to be used, and the only real value, or potential value at least, is that it could go up in price over time. And I think Bitcoin has relatively stabilized, but it's not something that I see the average American using as money, or the average American really investing much of it in their portfolio. But I applaud the fact that it was founded as a reaction to the financial crisis and the bailout of the big banks, and the fact that it tries to mimic the gold standard in the way that it's conducted, the way Bitcoins are produced. You have to use real resources, like, if you're mining, if you want to make gold coins, you have to spend a lot of money in order to mine the gold and smelt the gold and form the gold into coins. It takes real resources. Well, the same is true with Bitcoin. They're not for free. In other words, you have to use a lot of computational power, a lot of electricity has to go into it, so that the Bitcoin miners have massive amounts of computer power and electricity that goes into the mining of Bitcoins. And so I applaud it, but I'm not a big advocate of it.
Understandable. Dr. Thornton, you have been just amazing. I have so enjoyed this. Bridget and I were talking at break. She's saying how much she's learning. You and I actually had a second segment planned to do today on the opioid crisis that is hitting retirees. But, we have just run out of time. So I will ask you, may I please have Casey call you and reschedule you so that we can do that segment, because if it's half as interesting as this one, I think everybody's going to learn a lot.
Annalee and Bridget, I'd be happy to come back on your program. So please do have Casey give me a call.
Wonderful. And again, Dr. Thornton, thank you so much. Thank you for sharing your tremendous amount of knowledge and your intelligence. That, to me, is what makes the world go round. It's sharing it and educating people. So, again, I thank you. Please have a wonderful day, and I will have Casey give you a call.
You're very welcome, and War Eagle.
All right. All right. What a great, and I want to remind everybody, you can go to our website, the Mainstay Financial website, or go to the radio station site.
Newsradio1620.com.
And Dr. Thornton's book will be on there that you can download and read if you are so inclined. And I think the more we learn, whether you agree or disagree with the theory is not the point. The more you can learn about all of the theories that are out there, the more educated you will be to either look at what you now have and say, yes, this is what I believe, or look at what you now have and say, whoa, there was a big gap right there. I need to fill it in with something I've learned. Don't ever be afraid of knowledge. Knowledge is a good thing.
And we don't know everything.
No, we don't.
It's impossible.
We don't. I mean, I've been doing this almost 30 years, and I can honestly say to you, there is not one day that goes by that I don't learn something else. It's the way it is.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And especially for young people like me, I feel like listening to these kind of segments and reading these kind of books and really just getting educated on what I should do in the future and what I'm doing and what I'm not doing currently is something that we should all, gain knowledge from. So he was such a great example. I was taking notes the entire time. I was like, so that's what that means.
Yeah, and she really was. She really was taking notes.
Interesting.
I want everybody to know, from what Bridget is learning at this young age with this show, she's going to be a billionairess by the time she's in her 60s. I mean, she knows how to
Watch out, world.
Watch out, world. Well, let's talk about some of the things that are coming up and that we're doing. So get your pen and paper so you can write these down, please. On April 2nd, and yes, people, we almost are in April. This is the last week of March. We're done.
Where did it go?
So April 2nd, Dr. Connell is going to be doing Medicare Made Easy. Now, this is a 2-hour course, 5:30 to 7:30. This will be at the Milton campus on the 2nd. She will do the same class on the 8th at the Pensacola campus of Pensacola State College. So she'll be doing 5:30 to 7:30 on the 2nd at the Milton campus, Medicare Made Easy. Then she will do the same class again on the 8th of April, Medicare Made Easy at Pensacola State College, the main campus. So you can go to the website to get registered. You have to register through the college, or you can call my office. We will help you walk through how to get registered, because sometimes people get a little bit lost on that. There is a minimal cost. All of the proceeds go back to the college. We refuse to get paid for our time there. We want to support the college because the college does great work. On the 16th of April, I will be doing senior housing choices and cost for Sacred Heart Senior Spirit. And that's something, as we age, we need to start being aware of. What are our choices? So we'll do that on the 16th at Sacred Heart, at the Sacred Heart Cancer Center, 3rd floor. Again, call the hospital to register, 416-1620. We'll be doing the same presentation at Providence Hospital in Mobile on the 17th. Then on the 18th of April, I will have my class, Financial Survival for Retirement. Now, that's a 4-hour class. It takes place one Thursday and then the next Thursday, 5:30 to 7:30. Financial Survival for Retirement. This one will be on the Pensacola campus. Again, you have to call to register. The college number is 471-4630, or you can call us at Mainstay Financial, 437-3127. We would love to help you get registered for any of those. All of these dates are on our website, mainstayfinancial.com. Now, I'm getting real excited because April every year, as all of you know by now, we have our E to the power of 3. For women 55 years of age and over, any woman can come. Just understand the topic is geared toward the woman who is 55 and over. April 27th. We're trying a little bit different this year. It's going to be 8:30 to 12:30, and we're going to do a brunch instead of a lunch and get finished later. Now, because of that, we've reduced the price. It's $25 through April the 12th, so get your tickets now. Now, because we've lowered the price, I'm not going to do any half-price tickets. I'm not giving away tickets. $25. If you can't go, make a donation to E to the power of 3. We have literally saved women's lives with this money, and that's what we're doing this for. So call me at the office or look us up on Mainstay Financial or go to e3.com. Go out, say please, say thank you. Make the world a better place. Sometimes just a smile can make all the difference in the world. We'll see you next week, Bridget.
Thank you, Annalee.
News, talk, traffic, and weather. This is News Radio 92.3 AM 6.